Welcome to Excel tutorial. Today, I'll teach you how I have created my monthly budget spreadsheet. With the help of this monthly budget tracker spreadsheet, you'll be able to completely track your finances for the entire month, where you can track your bills, transactions, debt, and your income as well. It also comes with a complete dashboard with the required graphs. I'll teach you from scratch how I have created my monthly tracker budget spreadsheet. Let's get started. Here is how my monthly budget dashboard will look like. So here I have the month. Then I have some key pointers like the total income, expense, and budget amount left. So then I have the complete income table over here. So then I have the savings, my debt, my bills, expenses, and my spending overview for the complete month. Then I also have some graphs at the top. I also have an input table where I have created an input data spreadsheet. So here we can enter our complete bills, expense, and debt completely here. And then I also have the transactions table. So here I can handle all my transactions. So with the help of this, so whatever we are going to enter in the input and transaction table, with the help of that, I am calculating the complete budget tracker and then I'm creating this dashboard over here. Now I'll teach you how to create the spreadsheet from scratch. Let's get started. I opened a new spreadsheet and then first I'll name the sheet as input data and then I'll come to the top. I'll select these cells. I'll merge and center and then here I'll have the title as input data for this sheet and I'll make this bold. I'll increase the size and also I'll fill this with the color. Next, let's have the start date. So I'll merge and center this one and then let me say select your start date. And I'll combine these two cells together. So I'll make this bold and increase size. And also I'll add the background color for this. So we can have our start date as 1st July 2025. Let's keep the start date as this. I'll also make this bold and I'll increase the size. Now let's try to create tables. So here we'll be having 4 important tables. First one is the savings table. Then we have the bills table. Next we'll have the expense and the debt table. First, let me start with the savings table. So I'll select this. So I'll say savings. The next column is going to be how much budget we are going to have for the savings. So a little bit increase the size of this particular column. I'll select this. I'll make this bold. I'll increase the size. And I'll also fill this with a theme color. I'll select this and also I'll make this center align. Now we can have our savings entered below this table. Let me say that first, let me say general savings. Let me allocate a budget of $300 for this. And then next, let's say I'm going to do a savings for wedding. I'll have a budget of $200 for that. So this is going to be my savings. And I'll also convert this completely into US dollars. Here is my savings table. Now we'll go and try to have a border for this complete table. So I'll go to the borders and then I'll say line color. Let me select a light blue color and then I'll try to go and completely select this area and then I'll make it. So here I've got this complete table. So now let's try to go for the next table. So our next table is nothing but we'll have a bills table. So I'll say bills. Next, it's going to be the balance, how much I need to pay for the bill. And then what is going to be my payday. So here we can have what is going to be the payday. For example, if it's going to be second, I can say second. Like that, we can have the payday over here. I'll select this. I'll make this bold. I'll increase the size. And also I'll fill this with the color. I'll adjust the columns according to the data. Inside the bills, we can list down all our bills. So I'll say the first bill is going to be Wi-Fi. And let's keep this as $25 and the payday is going to be 50. So next we can have the other bills. Let me say MS Office subscription. So this is going to cost me $15 and I'll say the payday is going to be 1st of every month. So this is going to be our bills table. So this bills table also, I'll try to draw the borders for this one. So I'll select the line color and then I'll completely select this till here. And I'll make for the completely, I'll make it all line border like this. Next, let's see the expense table. So here I'll have the expenses and I'll have how much is going to be the budget for that particular expense. Now I'll try to adjust this accordingly and then I'll list out our expenses. So the first expense, let's say it's going to be for food and I'm going to spend $250 for it. And then let's say rent, and the rent is going to be $400. So these can be some of our expenses. I'll also convert this to US dollars. So here also I'll convert this to US dollars. Now I'll draw a complete border for this table as well. So I'll come and I'll draw the border for this. Next, let's see our last table. That's going to be a dip. So I'll say the dip and the budget for that. And next, we'll have what is going to be the payday for that particular dip. I'll try to select this, make this bold and also increase the size, and I'll fill this with the color. So I'll adjust the columns. So first, let's have the credit card. And I'm going to say it's going to be 150 and the payday is going to be first. So I'll just have only one listed down over here. So here is our complete input data. I'll also make this table as well. I'll add the borders for this table. So this are complete input data. So whatever you want to enter, let it be savings, bills, expense or debt, you can try to enter all your data in this input data sheet. Next, I'll go create another one sheet called as transactions. So first, let me go and have the title for this. So I'll combine, merge and center this one. I'll say transactions and I'll make this bold and also I'll increase the size of this and I'll add a theme color. Here we are going to have just one table. So first I'll have date. So next I'll have the value. Then I'll have the tip. I'll say details. So if any other details are there, we can just enter it. I'll adjust this. We can just combine this. I'll say merge across for this. Now I'll try to select this completely. I'll make this bold. I'll increase size and I'll format it. We'll also add complete border for this table. So I'll add the borders. So here in this table, we can try to enter what all transactions we are doing. So initially in the input, we have added the input. So here, let's say I'm going to do the transaction for the bills. So here I can say the date. So for example, let's say it's going to be for Wi-Fi and the value is nothing but whatever we have mentioned over here. So for example, $25 we have mentioned. So I'll say $25 and then for MS Office, so I'll say $15 and here the date is going to be 5th July 2025 and for this one it's going to be 1st July 2025. So this is going to be the date. Here we can have other transaction details. So maybe let's say I'm going to add other expense like the credit card expense over here. So I'll say credit card and it's going to be $150 and it's going to be 1st of July 2025. I'll also format all this to US dollars. So there's a transactions table. So if you want to add any other details about this transaction, we can just enter it over here. So after that, I'll create the monthly budget spreadsheet. So I'll say monthly budget. First, let me go and have the title. So I'll select this completely and then say monthly budget. And I'll make it bold. I'll also increase size of this. I'll add the color for this. So here at the top, let me give some space for the dashboard and then I'll come for the tables over here. So here we'll first have the savings table. So first I'll completely select this and then I'll say merge center. So here we are going to have the savings table. So below the savings, first I'll have the description. Then I'll have how much we have planned to save. Next, the actual amount and the difference. I'll adjust the columns. So I'll select this completely, make this bold and then increase the size. Also, I'll fill this color, and for this one, I'll fill it with a different color. So here we need to try to pull the data from our input data spreadsheet. So I'll say is equal to if, and then I'll open the brackets. So I'll go to input data and then select this, and I'll check whether this input data is going to be empty. I'll have opening and closing brackets. So if this condition is going to become true, then I'll have no value in the cell. But if this condition is going to become false, then I'll have the same general savings on our monthly budget table. So I'll close this and then I'll press enter. See, I'm getting the same value. So that's nothing but general savings. I'm getting it over here. Similarly, what I'll do is I'll just try to drag this completely. So whatever values are there in that particular table, I'll try to get those values over here. So now we need to have how much we have planned for this particular savings. So I'll say is equal to, I'll use the if condition. So if, and the test is nothing but it's going to be equal to opening and closing quotations I'll give. If there is no value inside this one, I'll have no value. But if there is going to be value, this condition is going to become false. I'll have this input data C13 over that. So now I'll close it. So I'm getting the same value over here. So I'll try to fill this completely. Only two values are there. So that's why I'm just getting only the two values. I'll also completely format this to US dollars. Next, let's try to calculate the actual value. Till now, how much we have saved. So that value is actually in the transaction. So if we are doing a transaction, that value we would have entered in the transactions table. So I'll come over here and then I'm going to say is equal to, if my B24, that's nothing but if this value here, if it's going to be equal to opening and closing quotations, I'll just give. So if there is no value inside this one, I'll have no value. But if it is going to be false, that means if there is going to be a value in B24 cell, I'll open, I'll say sum if, and then I need to try to sum if the values from a transactions table. So I'll go to transactions. I'll try to first select the range. So the range is nothing but I'll completely select this range over here till here. Then I need to say what is going to be the criteria. So the criteria is nothing but it is general savings. So here, whether this general savings, this word is there in a transaction. So I'll select this. So I have first selected the range. I'll give comma. Then I'll say what is going to be my criteria. So my criteria is nothing but it's going to be general savings. Then I'll give comma, and next I need to say what is going to be sum range. So sum range is also there inside the value. So here inside this table. So I'll select this completely and then I'll close the brackets. So two brackets. So now I'll enter. So here I'm getting the value as 0 because there is no value in a transaction. So you can see there is no value in a transaction for general savings. So that's why I'm getting the value as 0. So similarly, I'll just try to fill completely for this table. So this is how we'll calculate our actual value. Next, I'll come to the difference. So difference is nothing but it's going to be how much we have planned minus how much is the actual. So that's nothing but $300, right? So this is going to be my difference. Now I'll try to come and calculate the total. So here I'll have the total and I'll also try to make this bold and I'll fill this with the color. So here the total planned is going to be equal to, so the complete sum of the complete planned. So I'll select this completely and I'll enter. So next we'll do the calculation for our actual. So is equal to sum of, and then I'll completely select the actual. So next I'll do it for the difference. So I will say sum of, and then how much is going to be the difference. So now we have completed this for the savings table. Next, let's try to do for the debt table. So I'll select here completely and I'll say merge center and say debt over here. And then here we'll have the same description and the same thing we'll have it over here. So I'll try to adjust the columns and I'll highlight this with this color. Here I'll also make this bold and then I'll increase them. So here also we'll be using the same concept. We need to try to drag the data from the input data spreadsheet. So here I'll say is equal to, so if, and I'll go to the input data. So here we have the debt table over here. So I'll say if this credit card, if it is going to be equal to, I'll have the opening and closing quotations. If there's going to be no value, then I'll just have opening and closing quotations. There'll be nothing, or else I'll just try to have the same value over there. So when I press enter, see I'll have the credit card. So similarly, I'll try to fill this completely. And the planned also here I'll say if, and then I'll go to the input data. I'll select whether if the budget is going to be empty, so then we'll have no value. So if it's going to be false, we'll have the same budget over there. So I'll press enter. So here we'll get the value. So I'll also drag this completely for the table. So next we'll come for the actual. So actual, I'll say equal to, I'll have the if condition, I'll open the brackets. So if my credit card, if there's going to be no value inside this one, I'll have no value. If this condition is false, that means if there's going to be some value in the description, I'll say sum if, I'll open the bracket, and then first I will go to the transactions, select the sum range. So that's nothing but here the complete range. I'll try to select it. Then I'll give comma. So what is going to be the criteria? So here I'll come to the monthly budget spreadsheet. So the criteria is nothing but it's going to be credit card. So comma, and the sum range is going to be with the value on a transactions table. So I'll select this. I'll close the bracket. So now when I press enter, you can see I'm getting 150 over here. So that's because on our transactions, we have credit card 150, we have the third transaction is done. So that's why this 150 is coming over here. So I'll also try to format this to US dollars, and then the difference is nothing but is going to be equal to plan minus actual. So I'll enter. So here that's nothing but 0. Here also I'll have the total. So we'll calculate the total. I will completely select this, make this bold, and then I'll fill this with the color. Now the sum is nothing but it's going to be equal to sum. I'll select this complete column. Next for actual, and say sum, and then this is going to be the total sum. And for difference, I'll say sum, and this is going to be the complete sum. So similarly, let me try to do for the other two tables, that's the bill and expense. So let me try to do for the bills table. So I'll try to select this completely. I'll make this merge center, and then I'll say bills, and we'll have the same thing over here. I'll say bills, and then here I'll have description. Next I'll have plan. Next I'll have the deadline. Next the actual value and the difference. So I'll try to adjust these columns. I'll also select this completely and merge center. I'll make this bold, increase the size. Also I'll fill this with the color. So for the bills table also, we need to try to get the data from the input data. So I'll say is equal to, so if I'll go to the input data. So here we have our bills table. So if this Wi-Fi cell is going to be empty, I'll say no value, and then if it's going to be false, we'll have the same value. So I'll select. So here we have got the value. So I'll try to drag it completely. Now for the planned, so similarly same, I'll say if, I'll open the brackets, I'll go to the input data, and here we have the bills table over here. So the balance is nothing but this much. So I'll select this. If this value is going to be empty, so I have no value, or else I'll have the same value. So now I've got this value over here. So I'll try to completely enter this. So the deadline is nothing but the date, whatever we have given. So that's also in the input table we have it. So I'll go to input data, and the payday is 5th. We have it right over here. So I'll select this. So I'll say equal to, if it's going to be empty, so I'll say no value, or else I'll have the same value. So I'll press enter. So we have got this. So similarly, I'll try to drag it. So this one should be in US dollars. So now we need to calculate the actual value. So the actual value is nothing but how much we have paid till now. So I'll say equal to, I'll say if, I'll open the brackets, I'll select this. If there's no value inside the L24 cell, I'll just say no value, or else I'll say sum if, and then I need to go to the transactions table. So I'll select all the values over here, comma. So the criteria is nothing but it's going to be the Wi-Fi, comma, and I'll go to the transaction. So sum range is going to be, so the value over here. So I'll close the brackets. So I'll get this value. So I have paid $25. We have this in the transaction, so that's why I'm getting this value. So this value also should be in US dollars. So the difference is nothing but it's going to be equal to planned minus the actual. So I'll try to flash fill this. Next, we'll have the total. So I'll say total is equal to, and I'll highlight this complete row. So I'll make this bold. So here I'll say is equal to sum, and I'll calculate the complete sum of the plan. Next, I'll calculate the complete sum of the actual and the difference. Now we have completed for the bills table. Next, the last table is nothing but we have the expense table. I'll select this. I'll merge center. I'll say expense, and then we'll have our complete description, planned, and actual difference. So I'll select this. We'll have the same thing over here. I'll make this bold. I'll increase size, and then I'll also fill this with the color. And let me adjust these columns. So for planned also, we need to get the data from the input data spreadsheet. So I'll say equal to, I'll say if, I'll go to the input data table. So here I'll select if this cell it's going to be empty. I'll say no value, or else I'll have the same value, the food over there. So we'll get this. I'll try to flash fill this completely. And similarly, I'll go to the planned. So here also, we need to get the data from the expense. So I'll go here and then say the budget. If it's going to be equal to no value, then we'll have no value for true. If it's going to be false, I'll have the value. So here we have got the value. Similarly, I'll try to flash fill this for the complete row. Now we need to calculate the actual. So for actual, we need to use the transactions table and then do it. So if there is no value in the description, I'll say opening and closing quotes. If there is no value, then we'll have no value. If this condition is going to be false, I'll say sum if, and then I'll open the brackets. So here I'll go to the transactions table. I'll select this complete range over here, comma. Next, I need to give the criteria. So the criteria is nothing but food is going to be the criteria. So I'll give comma, and then the sum range is going to be the value. So I'll select the complete sum range. So I'll close. So here is the actual value is 0 because we have not added any transactions for the expense on our transaction table. So you can see over here. So now we'll find the difference. So difference is nothing but it's going to be equal to plan minus the actual. So I'll try to flash fill this, and also I'll completely make this, convert this to US dollars. So finally, we need to calculate the total. So I'll say total, and I'll completely select this. I'll fill this with the color, and I'll make this bold. So sum of planned is equal to, I'll say is equal to sum, and then I'll select the complete data. So actual also is equal to sum. We can select the complete data. And for difference is also is equal to sum, and I'll collect the complete data over here. So now we have completed for the important tables. So that's savings, debt, bills, and expense. Now let me come to the dashboard. So here I'll try to select these cells, and here I'll say as July 2025. So for this is the month for which we are calculating. So I'll try to make this bold, and also I'll increase the size of this. So next we'll have some key pointers below this. First I'll select this. I'll merge, and here let me say total income, and I'll try to merge these three cells together. And then let's have the next key pointer. I'll try to merge this. So it's going to be total expense, and I'll try to select these three cells and merge it. Next key pointer, let's say it's going to be the amount left. And here let's have the last key pointer. So we'll have budget amount left. So also I'll try to merge all these cells together. Select all these key pointers. I'll make this bold, increase the size, and I'll fill this with this color. And also I'll try to center line this, and I'll fill this with our theme color. Next, let me create two important tables, one for income overview and spending overview. So I'll try to select these four cells and I'll little bit try to increase this cell. So here I'll say income overview, and first I'll have the income, then I'll have the payday, next how much is planned, and the actual value. So let me say that I'm going to have some multiple incomes. I'll try to select this. I'll make this bold and I'll also increase the size. So I'll also add the color for this. So here, let me say the first income is going to be my main job, and the payday is going to be first, and the plan, let's say it's going to be 2,500, and how much is actual. So I'll say the same value. I've got it. So now next, let's say I'm going to have a freelance job. So for the freelance, let me say the payday is going to be 5th, and the plan value, let's keep it at 1,200. But let's say the actual value, whatever I've got, is only 1,100. And then I'll say some other income. So here the payday, I'll calculate this as 10th. So let me say it's going to be $800, and let's say I've got $700. So now I'll try to calculate the total. So the total is nothing but planned, I'll say equal to, and then I'll try to find the sum of these three. And similarly here also I'll try to go on find the sum of these three actual values. I'll try to highlight this and then make this bold. So this is my income overview table. Now I'll come to the spending overview. So I'll try to merge and center this one and then say spending overview. So here I'll have description. Then I'll have the planned. Then I'll have the actual value and the difference. So in the description, we'll have, it's going to be nothing but we'll have our savings, then we'll have our debt, then we have our bills, and we'll have our expense. So all these values. So I'll try to first go and format this and make this bold, increase size. So for this one, I'll fill this with this color, and for this, I'll fill this with the light blue color. So next, the planned value is nothing but here. It's going to be equal to the sum of the savings planned over here. So I'll select this. So the actual value, similarly, it's going to be equal to the same value, whatever we have in a savings table. So for difference also, I'll say is equal to, and then the difference value over here. So similarly for debt, I'll have this value, the planned value is this much. Then for actual, I'll say equal to, and the actual value, and for the difference value. So similarly for bills, I'll say is equal to, so the planned value is this much. Then the actual value is equal to, so this is the actual value, and the difference is going to be equal to, so the difference value. Similarly, I'll do for the expense. So is equal to, so this is the planned, so the actual is 0, and the difference is $650. Here also I need to calculate the total. So I'll say total is equal to, so I'll say sum of all the planned and sum of all the actual, and at last sum of all the difference. Convert this to US dollars and also make this bold, and I'll fill this with this color. So here is how we have got a complete income overview and spending overview table. Now we'll add our key pointers. So our total income is nothing but it's going to be equal to, so the actual income whatever we have earned. So I'll say this is going to be our total income. Also, I'll make all this completely into US dollars. So this one is also going to be in US dollar formatting. So then our total expense. So total expense is nothing but it's going to be equal to sum of our total values on a transaction table. So here I'll try to find the total sum of this. So this is going to be my total expense. So this one also is going to be in US dollars. So next, I'll calculate the amount left. So amount left is nothing but it's going to be the total income. So how much ever we have minus our total expense. So this is going to be my amount left. And next we'll have the budget amount left. So how much ever we have planned. So let's say we have planned our total income, whatever we have planned is 4,500 minus whatever spending we have planned is 1,340. So this is going to be our budget amount left. So I'll enter. So I'll select all these 4 key pointers. I'll make this bold and also I'll increase the size of these. So here are our important key pointers for this monthly budget tracker. Now let's try to create graph for our dashboard. So first I'll select this completely, the spending overview, and I'll go to insert, I'll go to column chart, and then I'll create a 2D column chart over here. So here we'll be able to see for savings how much we have planned and how much is the actual we have saved. So for debt, we can say completely we have saved, and for bills also we can completely see it. So I'll go and edit the chart title as spending plan versus saved, and I'll go and change the colors to our theme colors. So here is our first chart. Next, I'll go and try to create a chart for our total income versus total expense. So I'll select this and then I'll go and create a pie chart. So here is my pie chart. I'll try to drag and keep this pie chart over here. So there's nothing but our total income versus our expense. So I'll go and then change the color of this. So here is my total income versus expense chart. So with the help of this monthly budget tracker, we'll be able to track our complete finances for the particular month. So first we have created the savings table, then we have our debt, then we have the bills and expense. So after that we have created the 2 important tables. So the income overview, the spending overview, and then we have calculated our key pointers over here. Also we have created graphs to see how our spending versus plan is going to look like and how our total income versus expense is going to look like. So if you're looking to download this monthly budget tracker spreadsheet, I have given the link in the description. You can try to go and download it from there. I have also created multiple spreadsheets for tracking your personal finance. Like I have created for personal finance package, so your budget by paycheck. Then we have a net worth tracker, sinking funds, debt tracker, and all these spreadsheets I have created for tracking your personal finance. You can visit my website plrduck.com and then try to download these templates. All these templates comes with master resale rights and commercial rights. You can try to edit these templates as per your wish and then share it with as many people you like. And another good thing is that all these spreadsheets come in 2 versions. One is for the Excel and another is for Google Sheets as well. I hope you would have liked this video. Do like and subscribe our channel for more such content. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I'll see you in another Google Sheet or Excel tutorial.